There's a man who pulls into the same parking lot every single morning in a faded 2011 Honda Civic. Small dent on the front bumper, paint slightly oxidized on the hood. His coworkers have quietly written him off. They assume he is probably stretched thin, maybe one bad month away from real trouble. What they do not know is that this man has $4.2 million sitting in index funds. His house is completely paid off, and he could walk into his boss's office tomorrow morning, quit without a single word of explanation, and never work another day in his life if he chose to. He drives that Civic on purpose, and by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why that is one of the most sophisticated financial decisions a person can make in 2026. Because right now, the rules of money have quietly flipped on most people, and almost nobody has noticed. See, we were all handed the same script growing up. Work hard, earn more, upgrade your life, show people you made it. And for decades, that script felt like it made sense. But somewhere along the way, that script stopped being about building wealth and started being about performing it. And the performance has gotten so expensive that it is now one of the single biggest reasons why intelligent, hardworking people never actually become free. Today, we are going to talk about something called stealth wealth. Not as a cute budgeting trick, not as a frugality challenge, but as a complete philosophy that the quietly wealthy have been using for decades while everyone else was watching and wondering how they did it. I'm going to walk you through the psychology behind why visible wealth actually costs you more than you realize. I'm going to show you the specific habits that allow ordinary people to quietly build extraordinary fortunes. And I'm going to share something toward the end of this video that might genuinely change how you look at the people around you. Specifically, a simple social test you can use to figure out whether the people in your life actually like you, or whether they like what you represent to them. That one might be uncomfortable, but it is worth knowing. Let's start with something that should stop you cold. A 2025 Goldman Sachs report found that 40% of households earning $500,000 or more still feel like they are living paycheck to paycheck. $500,000 a year, and nearly half of those people feel financially anxious every single month. If you've ever thought that the solution to your money problems was simply making more money, that statistic is the universe tapping you on the shoulder. More income does not fix a broken relationship with money. It amplifies whatever relationship you already have. If you are anxious about money at $60,000 a year, you'll find a way to be anxious about money at $300,000. If you are performing wealth at one income level, you'll just perform it louder at the next. The treadmill does not stop just because it speeds up. Thomas Stanley and William Danko spent decades, literally decades, studying how millionaires actually live and behave. And what they found obliterated almost every assumption our culture has about wealthy people. 80% of millionaires in America are first-generation affluent. That means they did not inherit it, they didn't get lucky with a startup, they didn't marry into money. They built it quietly from nothing over time. And the single most consistent trait across all of them was this: they did not look like what most people imagine the millionaire looks like. Experian Automotive ran a study that found 61% of people earning over $250,000 a year do not drive luxury cars at all. Toyotas, Hondas, Fords, nothing remarkable, nothing that announces itself in a parking lot. Meanwhile, the people most likely to be driving a leased BMW or a financed Mercedes are earning under $100,000 a year, stretching every month to maintain an image that is costing them their future. Think about what that actually means. The people who can most easily afford to look wealthy often choose not to. Meanwhile, the people most likely to be driving a leased BMW or a financed Mercedes are earning under $100,000 a year, stretching every month to maintain an image that is costing them their future. Think about what that actually means. The people who can most easily afford to look wealthy often choose not to, and the people who can least afford it are the ones investing in the costume. That is not a coincidence. That is the gap between people who understand what money is actually for and people who are still using it as a social signal. Now here is where it gets genuinely interesting, because the cost of signaling wealth is not just the price tag on the item itself. When you signal wealth, you're not buying a car or a watch or a designer bag. You're buying a tax that follows you everywhere, into every room, every dinner, every relationship. Think about what happens socially when people perceive you as wealthy. You are the one expected to pick up the tab. You are the one expected to give the bigger gift. You are the one your friend calls when they need a loan they may or may not intend to repay. You are the one your family member pulls aside at Thanksgiving with a business idea they need seed money for. Every signal you send out about your financial status becomes an invitation for other people to make financial demands on it. And that is just the social cost. In 2026, high net worth individuals are now 43% more likely to experience identity theft compared to the general population. Cybercriminals are actively using social media to identify targets for what are called whaling attacks, which are highly personalized, deeply researched scams designed specifically for people who have publicly advertised that they have something worth stealing. Every luxury purchase you announce online, every photo of the business class seat, every post from the vacation home is data, and someone, somewhere is building a profile with it. Looking wealthy in 2026 is not just expensive, it is a security vulnerability. But I want to go even deeper than the practical costs, because there's a psychological dimension to this that almost nobody talks about. When your lifestyle is highly visible, your relationships become transactional in ways you cannot always see clearly. The people around you begin to relate to the version of you that your money projects, and over time it becomes genuinely difficult to know which relationships are real. The wealthy people who report the highest levels of loneliness are not the ones living quietly, they're the ones living loudly, surrounded by people who are really just surrounding the lifestyle. The man in the Honda Civic does not have that problem. When someone laughs at his joke, it is because they found it funny. When someone wants to spend time with him, it is because they actually want to spend time with him. His relationships are built on signal that has nothing to do with what he's worth on paper, and that is a form of freedom that no amount of luxury goods can actually buy you. So let's talk about what stealth wealth actually looks like in practice, because this is not about being cheap, it's not about depriving yourself, it's not about living in misery so you can die with a big number in an account. It's about being deeply intentional with where your money goes, and radically uninterested in whether anyone else can see it working. The first and most powerful move is controlling what people who study financial behavior call the Big Three: housing, transportation, and food. These three categories alone account for roughly 60 to 70% of most people's spending, and they are also the three categories where status signaling is the most aggressive and the most expensive. The typical person who quietly builds $1 million net worth lives in a house that is genuinely modest relative to what they could afford. They are not serial upgrading every time their income increases. They are not buying more house because their neighbors bought more house. They understand something that most people never sit down to calculate. The property taxes alone on a luxury home can run $10,000 to $20,000 more per year than a modest one. That is money that is gone. It does not come back. It does not compound. It does not build anything. On transportation, the math is even brutaler. Let's say you buy a $50,000 car on a loan. On day one, your net worth has not technically changed much because you have an asset roughly equal to the debt. But by the end of year one, that car has lost approximately 20% of its value to depreciation. It is now worth $40,000 and you still owe close to the full loan amount. Your net worth just dropped by $10,000, and then you've paid somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 in interest on top of that. So in a single year, you've spent $12,000 to $13,000 to end up with less than you started with. You paid money to lose money. That is what financing a depreciating asset actually looks like when you write it out. The financially intelligent move, the one the quietly wealthy make consistently, is to buy used cars that have already absorbed that initial depreciation hit, ideally with cash. A 3-year-old Toyota with 80,000 miles on it is not a consolation prize, it is a deliberate strategy. The second practice is what I think of as maximizing invisible containers. In 2026, the IRS raised the 401k contribution limit to $24,500. If you're 50 or older, you can add another $8,000 in catch-up contributions. If you're between 60 and 63, there is an additional super catch-up of $11,250. The IRA limit came in at $7,500. These accounts are invisible in the best possible way. Nobody sees them. They don't upgrade your lifestyle in any visible direction. They don't announce themselves at dinner parties. but they are working for you constantly in the background, silently compounding while the rest of your life continues unchanged. The 25-year-old who contributes $500 a month into a tax-advantaged index fund account can have over $1.2 million by the time they reach 65. Not because they were lucky, not because they picked the right stock, just because they were consistent and patient and invisible about it. The third practice, and this one requires some honesty, is calculating what the millionaire next door calls your real net worth. Not your income, not your car, not your zip code, your actual net worth. The number you get when you add up everything you own and subtract everything you owe. There is a formula from that book that is worth knowing. Multiply your age by your pre-tax annual income and divide by 10. That is roughly what your net worth should be if you have been building consistently. If your actual net worth is significantly below that number, you are what the research calls an under-accumulator of wealth. You are earning money, but it is passing through your hands instead of staying in them. And the reason it is passing through is almost always the same. It is being spent on appearance. Now, I want to talk about something that does not show up in any spreadsheet, but that I think is genuinely one of the most underrated concepts in personal finance: the financial value of peace of mind. Here is a scenario a lot of people find themselves in. You have a car loan at 7% interest. You know the stock market has historically returned around 10% annually, so mathematically you might be tempted to invest your spare cash instead of paying off the loan, because the math suggests you could net about 3% more per year by doing that. But that math leaves something out. How often do you think about that loan? Does it sit in the back of your mind on Sunday evenings? Does it make you hesitant to take career risks because you feel like you cannot afford a gap in income? Does market volatility stress you out because the returns are uncertain while the interest on your debt is absolutely guaranteed? For many people, the psychological cost of carrying debt is worth far more than the theoretical 3% annual difference. The peace of mind from being debt-free has real financial value. It shows up in the risks you are willing to take, the opportunities you are willing to pursue, the quality of sleep you get before a big decision. You cannot put a clean number on it, but it is real and it matters. I want to tell you something else that does not get said enough in financial content, and I think it's important. You are probably not bad with money because you lack discipline. You're probably overwhelmed. Modern financial life requires an exhausting number of micro decisions every single day. Should I buy this? Should I save that? Should I cancel this subscription? Should I move this money? Each of those decisions drains cognitive energy, and when that energy runs out, which it does for every human being regardless of intelligence or willpower, we default to avoidance. We stop looking at the accounts, we stop thinking about the plan. We tell ourselves we'll figure it out next month. The solution is not to try harder. The solution is to simplify until the system mostly runs itself. Warren Buffett said it plainly: do not save what is left after spending. Spend what is left after saving. Automate the savings before the money ever lands in your checking account. Set it up once, then let it become invisible. When savings happen automatically, you adjust to living on what remains. You never feel the loss because you never experience the money as yours to spend in the first place. This is how ordinary people build extraordinary wealth over decades. Not through heroic discipline, through systems that remove the need for it. Now, the social test I promised you at the beginning. This one is simple, but it can be genuinely clarifying. The next time you're in a financial transition, whether that's paying off your car and going back to something more modest, canceling a luxury service, or quietly dialing back visible spending in some way, pay attention to who stays and who adjusts their behavior toward you. The people who like you for you won't even notice, or if they notice, they won't care. But the people who are relating to your money, to your lifestyle, to what you represented, will make their discomfort visible in small ways. Maybe they stop suggesting certain restaurants. Maybe the invitations slow down. Maybe there's a subtle shift in how they talk to you. That is not a loss. That is information. Genuinely useful information about which relationships in your life are built on something real and which ones were built on the performance you were funding. The man on the Honda Civic already knows who his real people are. He figured it out a long time ago. Here's the thing about stealth wealth that I think gets missed when people describe it purely as a saving strategy. It's not really about money. It's about identity. It's about deciding who you are completely separately from what you own. It's about building a version of your life that doesn't depend on external validation to feel successful. Because once you're not chasing the feeling that comes from other people being impressed by you, the entire financial game changes. You stop making decisions based on what will look good and start making decisions based on what will actually work. You stop buying the car to feel successful and start investing the car payment to become free. You You stop upgrading the house to signal arrival and start paying it down so that no one owns a piece of your life. You stop performing and start building, quietly, consistently, invisibly. The research on this is not ambiguous. The people who accumulate the most wealth over a lifetime overwhelmingly are the people who are most indifferent to whether anyone else can see it happening. Success is not what you can buy. Real success is what you no longer have to buy. Real wealth is the freedom you purchased with the money you didn't spend. The goal was never to look rich. The goal was to actually become free. And here is where I want to leave you. 74% of Americans report having at least one significant financial regret. That number is not a reflection of laziness or stupidity. It's a reflection of a culture that taught people to earn money and spend money and perform money, but never how to quietly, patiently, and invisibly build it. If any part of this video felt like a description of where you've been, that's not a reason for shame. That's a reason to change the script. Not all at once, not with some dramatic lifestyle overhaul. Just one habit, one system, one invisible container, one less performance. Start there and let the rest compound.